Welcome to the magazine. I'm your host, Charlie Murphy. This is actually the third version of the magazine brought back this year in 2020. And why did we decide to bring the magazine back? Well, during these very challenging times, there is still many positive things happening in our community. And we're going to highlight that on the magazine. Different businesses, different people, and different parts of our community in the town of Fay Haven. Welcome back to the magazine.
But when these program directors heard, hey, there's a morning show from a diner with real customers, and you can hear the clinging of the coffee cups in the background, and you could almost smell the ham being grilled. You know, program directors would say, send me a tape of this, and let me see what it sounds like. And that's how we were like the appetizers of morning breakfast shows.
Oh, that's great.
And we started with just a handful, and then before you know it, it grew and grew. We were in San Diego, in Dallas. We really did a great job marketing the concept of a diner show nationally, and they loved it.
I have a deadline business.
Yep.
And when deadline comes, as you can tell by my house, it looks like a hurricane hit it. When deadline comes, when you get into that stretch, that's it. You got to get it done. I learned that working as a typesetter at these different places. The Bay State Banner is a perfect example of just being there. There were 2 typesetters, and we would just sit there and talk and shoot the stuff and blah, 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 blah. And then all the stories would come in, and we would both just go, boom. He'd take a stack, and I'd take a stack, and we didn't talk. And then they'd go, and then we'd wait for them to proofread it and come back. And and it didn't matter how late it was going to be. If it was 2, 3 in the morning, that paper needed to get to the printer at a certain time. And that's the same thing now with me, and it's just, it's kind of become, it's a way of life, really. I mean, it's stressful.
So tell me some of the challenges of being the first tourism director for the town of Fay Haven, and some of the really strong rewards.
Well, the challenges were, we didn't have this department before. Another challenge was I had worked in private companies and didn't have any experience with governmental stuff and how it works. And the third challenge was when I was hired and they stuck me up in a room at the top of town hall somewhere, I was taught more about how to work the soda machine than about how town government operates. So I had to develop budgets, I had to do all that kind of stuff, learning as I was going along because I had no experience with that. And this hadn't been done before. So I am still the first tourism director for the town. Everything that the Office of Tourism has been doing has basically been, with some suggestions and support of others, has been my stuff.
We're asked to go places and do things, and the creative aspect was fun too. And part of that, like I said, every bit that has touched me, every experience that I've had. David and I did this wacky TV show thing at the beginning of cable here, and it was offensive enough to get us in trouble on several occasions locally, and we would just go in and do it. Dave can correct me on this, but he was learning his craft, and it served him for years and years, and now today doing this again, and we had our little thing which took away any fear I ever had of having a camera on.
Excellent.
And that's a big part of it, and that's once again a Fay Haven.
Right.
The thing, and.
So I have a hard question for you, although we might have already heard it, but what is your best experience?
I assume you're speaking about on stage?
Yes. So, Tim, tell us about the last ride
the last ride was a very humbling experience for me. I never thought that many people, even during COVID, you figure with COVID you're going to keep it to a low key. We couldn't. I never thought that many people would show up and grace me with their presence. And I'm talking about chiefs from other communities, I'm talking about residents, I'm talking about family. It was just very humbling to stand out there and then see my firefighters when I pulled up, all in their uniform, standing, and my daughter brings me a tissue, and I'm like, really, Samantha? You're not helping things, but she bet me that I was gonna cry, and she won.
She also put a lot of work into that too.
She did, and she's the apple of my eye, her and my son. But to see,
And your grandson.
oh, I'll never forget my grandson. But to see my firefighters standing there at attention and saluting me, and I tried to give them some of my words of wisdom of take this job seriously, but it's got to be something that's in your heart and you enjoy, and you're here to help people, but you're also here to help yourself. And I gave them a little speech out there that I'm sure people have seen, but it was probably one of the most humbling days of my career, just to know that many people appreciated what I've done over the years. And I have to tell you, I love doing it. So it wasn't like it was a chore for me. It was more, but I knew it was just time for me to go. It's a young generation coming up, and they have so much more knowledge to give, and so much more technique and new stuff to learn. And so it was time for me to step aside and let them venture forward.
And so we opened with that display auction when I was in Belgium. We met this company out of Iceland. RSF was the name, and they had software in which they have a display auction in Iceland.
Okay.
So when we started this auction, all we had was, I was the auctioneer. Give me $1, $1.05, just like the Portuguese feasts in North Fay Haven.
Yeah.
I was the.
That's why he's good at it.
You're paid for that.
I was the auctioneer, and we had the buyers in the room with the sellers, which were the fishing vessels, which wasn't a good mix.
Yeah.
Because they always had their hatred for each other or dislikes about each other because of what happened in the past. And
He was the auctioneer. I was the bouncer.
yeah,
It was a lot. It was a lot of fights going on back then. It was exciting times. I think it was,
and by the way, we put together that software when we first started in like 36 hours, 48 hours. And it happened to be that the chalkboard auction in New Bedford closed right down.
Right.
So there was no auction at that time for New Bedford, and that's what gave us the opportunity to coming in with the display auction.
And tell us about one of your members that you had, Elly. What a great member he was of Fay Haven Militia. He embodied the Fay Haven Militia.
Right. So Elly took over as commander. Chuck Cromwell ran the group for quite some years, right from its inception, through several years, got us organized. And then Chuck wanted to bow out. He still is a lifelong member, but Elly took over as commander. He stepped up and he wanted to do the job. And he really had a love for history. He was part of the West Family Bible story that took place during the Revolutionary War when they raided this area, the British. They stole a Bible from the West family, and Elly was a direct descendant of that family. So he ran the group for a number of years. He just had a love for history. He had a love for being the commander. He really enjoyed what he did. And on March 3rd of 2000, Elly passed away suddenly at age 53. So right now we're kind of in limbo. We don't have a commander. As captain of the group and one of the senior people, I've been kind of being the interim person to take charge.
What's it like being an animal control officer?
Being an animal control officer, it's I like it because I never know what the next moment's going to bring. I could have days where we never say the Q word, quiet, because if you ever say it's quiet, we get bombarded with calls. I never know what the next moment's going to bring. My job here is kind of unique as far as animal control goes, because not a lot of towns have their own shelter. I think Swansea has one, Lakeville has one, but in the area they generally contract out to other shelters. And anyone that knows me, and Charlie can verify this, I would not do this job unless I could run the shelter too, because I get to see the dog that I get that's been neglected, abused, one that's just not wanted anymore, one that's lost, and I get to see them all the way through to go to a loving home, and that's the best part of the job. And if I didn't have that, I really couldn't do this job. And the reason it's unique is because our town loves the shelter, and not a lot of towns want to fund a shelter because it can be expensive. But we kind of offset that with donations. A lot of people donate a lot of money to us, and we're very, very appreciative of that. And I always say is I wouldn't do this unless I could have the shelter too.
We had COVID-19. How did that affect you?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. It was like last minute. They just decided to do stuff and shut us down. They decided, the state decided, or the country decided to put on regulations and only let us do takeout, not let customers in. So we did that for a few months, and then we were lucky that they let us start selling beer and wine to go, which helped business and kept the kitchen running, kept the kitchen staff running, so they could stay employed. But eventually we got the outdoor patio going, which was great. People loved it. It was nice being out there in the summer, and that definitely helped us pay bills and get our employees back working together again. And it's great.
So what got you into photography?
When I was a little kid, my dad had an old film camera, a Canon AE1 or 2. And the thing was, when I was a little kid, it was just fascinating to imagine what this thing does. It looked futuristic even back then. And I wanted to try it. He would never let me touch it. One day when I was older, he let me try it, and I put a roll of film in there. Had no idea what I was doing. It came out awful, nothing developed. But from there, I ended up getting another camera when I was older, and it just kind of blew into this obsession with photographing, just capturing subjects.
And what do you like to shoot? I know that some of your research here has done some abandoned places, historic places, haunted places.
Yeah. I definitely have a passion for reportedly historic and haunted places. The mysterious always kind of captures me. Like I wanna know what's there. Like if this place is haunted, this happened there, any kind of big event that may have left an imprint on the place. But my main focus, like for photographing, whether it's an historic place, an abandoned place, or a haunted place, is to kind of, it's like the camera's my version of a time machine. So when I capture the place, especially the museums that are maintained well and kept to period timepieces, I like to convey kind of what it's like to be there.
So tell us about the history of Dorothy Cox Chocolates.
Okay, Dorothy Cox was my grandfather's sister. She originally started in 1928 by selling candy at the New Bedford Dry Goods Store. It used to be called Star Store, but back in the day it was New Bedford Dry Goods Store every Saturday. She would make candy and sell it. She'd make it all week and sell it there on Saturdays. And everybody loved it so much that she decided to open up her own store.
Great.
Yeah.
Where was that store?
Center Street in Fay Haven.
So where did it go from there?
Middle Street in Fay Haven. Unfortunately, we lost Dorothy in 1954. And my grandfather took it over from the family. Mm-hmm. And my grandfather and grandmother ran the store on Middle Street for years. And then they lost everything in a fire. They ended up from there moving to Route 6.
Okay. And is that when your father got involved?
Yes. My father worked there, and my mother did, and for years. Was it 1958 we moved there? Yeah. And we were there for years.
And then you went to another part of Fay Haven.
Yes, we went to Alden Road in Fay Haven, and we were there for a few years. And now we're in our new home on Burden Way, right in Ocean State Job Lots Plaza.
What is Dear Frankie?
Well, Dear Frankie is a evolved to a dog column. So it's a dog advice column, but it's written by a dog, two dogs, about their social and emotional issues. And it's really a dog or a canine version of a Dear Abby. And so when I started to think about the column, I did some market research, and actually, interestingly enough, no one has ever written a Dear Abby kind of column for dogs. So it is a first of its kind.
So what is Fay Haven Frets?
Fay Haven Frets, first of all, is a touchstone, a place for musicians to meet and if they have any needs for strings or repair or that kind of thing, that's what I'm here for.
Excellent, excellent. And so you celebrated your 1-year anniversary. Congratulations being Fair Haven.
I did,
1 year
thank you.
On January 13th during a pandemic year.
Yes.
So how did that affect your new business?
That was interesting to say the least. I was open for 2 months, and 2 months and 2 days into my new business here, I had to shut down, and I closed for 3 months. In those 2 months, I had met several people coming in. The musical community has been very kind to me. I feel very blessed that I had people knocking on the window saying, "Hey, are you open?" "Well, I'm not open right now." "Well, wait, I have something for you." And I'd come to the door and they'd say, "Here, I dug this out from under the bed. Please fix it. You need some work." They were giving me work because they felt I needed it, not because they needed it done.
Sure.
It was very, very kind of people to help support.
Good, so the community came together for it.
Absolutely.
So can you tell us how you guys started this organization?
Okay, well, it goes back to the fact that Manjaro was the first Japanese person to live in USA, and he lived in this house, the house of Captain William Whitfield, who rescued him. And so with that in mind, over a period of time with interaction with his hometown, which is Tosa Shimizu in Japan, in 1987, a group from this area went to Tosa Shimizu. Ayaka went with them, as a matter of fact, as one of the translators, and they signed a sister city agreement. And that's way back. So now, for 32 years, we have been the sister city to Manjaro's hometown, Tosa Shimizu. Also, just to bring up to date, in this building, the building was for sale in 2008. And Dr. Hinohara, who is a well-known doctor in Japan, heard about it, and he said it's too historically important to let it go to condos. So he started fundraising in Japan. He raised over $1 million, bought the house, had it renovated, and he came over on May 7th of 2009. May 7th was the first day Manjaro lived in the house. Wow. So they celebrated that. He brought 100 supporters from Japan with him, and we had an all-day celebration to dedicate this museum. And so now for the last 11 years, we've had more than 8,000 visitors to this museum, about 2/3 of them being Japanese, some from all parts of the world, actually.
How did this all begin?
About 4 years ago, some veterans got together and a committee was formed to bring this 80% replica of the Vietnam Wall in Washington, there's an 80%, to Massachusetts. Now, there are 3 other walls in the country that are 80%. So we began looking at what area we could purchase this wall, which you have to purchase. And with the purchase of the wall, you get the proprietary rights of the state that you put the wall in and a 50-mile radius. By putting it down in the Fall River area, we actually absorbed Rhode Island, and we also have Massachusetts. So it's more of a regional wall we like to look at. And the board members are veterans and non-veterans on the board of directors.
How did you get into real estate?
It's something that I wanted to do years before I started to do it, and it was, one of those things that you put off, and it was always something that I enjoyed. I always enjoyed real estate in general. I always enjoyed, well, first and foremost, I like to help people, no matter what I'm doing in life, personally, professionally, and so I always thought hand in hand to be able to help somebody with, finding one of the biggest things that they're going to do in life is buy or sell their home or whatever it may be with real estate, help them with their investments and things like that. I just thought it would be really, really cool. And I said, you know what, I finally have to take a go at this and see where it takes me. And I am so glad that I did.
Tell us a little bit of the services that you offer here.
Well, again, we're full spa. We have nails, we have pedicures, we have skincare, we have massage, we have pregnancy massage, and we do amazing hair. We are constantly devoting ourselves to lifelong learning. That's everyone that works here constantly is in a space of learning. When you feel so passionate about something, you always want more information, and that's where we all are. So today, as I shared with you earlier, we spent the day upgrading all of our facial services for our guests so that we can provide even better service for them.
So training is ongoing.
Constant.
And education.
Absolutely. We've attended educational events together.
Yes.
Yes.
Down in New Orleans.
Yes, we did. And it was wonderful. And it was a very uplifting situation to make us all better, to make the business of Glory and Company, the business of Mo Life, better.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It was amazing.
My gym, it's a private studio, so by appointment based only. So we're really, really small, and it's really just more personal than some of the other gyms. All of my clients I get to know on a personal base, so it's more. I feel like it's more of like a family. So it's not just like you're coming in and once a week, but there's like not much communication or anything like that. I'm reaching out to them and I'm motivating them throughout the week via text or keeping, if someone's fallen off track, I'm giving them a phone call or a text and say, hey, you haven't been here, what's going on? But for the most part, it's the personal aspect of the studio and the atmosphere, I would say.
So I took a little time off. I wanted to get into the industry, but it was tough to break into right out of college. They're always looking for somebody with experience, things like that. I was living in Warren, Rhode Island at the time with some roommates. Began my career at Full Channel Television was the name of the station there. And that developed into a job and career at New Bedford Cable Access in the early 2000s. Worked there for about 5 years. Got a lot of experience there, all non-linear editing. Everything was changing at that time into the digital age. So learned all that stuff. They had a pretty vibrant public access community doing a lot of shows, and we did a ton of sports with New Bedford High games, things like that. Left there in 2006 to take a role down at Falmouth Community Television with the intent of possibly moving down the Cape. I was the interim station manager there for a while when the station manager left, but I never made the move and the commute was too much. That transcended into a job at Dartmouth Community Television. Worked there for 12 years, and we did a ton of things there as well, including UMass, Dartmouth sports and events, and also the high school over there and community events, and got a wealth of experience in the 12 years at Dartmouth.
There has been a lot of student projects that are trying to be made, but in a safe way, and they have to go through the University of Rhode Island risk management, which means there's like a ton of red tape, especially for producers. And ironically, I'm producing one of my friend's short films right now for college, so I've gotten to go along with him as he directs it, trying to just go through all the red tape and make sure it's safe and fine. But yeah, it definitely puts a lot in your way. But honestly, I come from the position that if you can make a film, if you can make a good film now, like you can make a good film when all of this stuff is out of the way. So it's good training.
Where did you find your passion for interior design?
Actually, I was really young. I was about 5 or 6 years old, and I woke up one day and I literally started rearranging my furniture in the room. And I don't know where it came from, but I just started looking at things and saying, well, I wonder if that were over there and this was moved to here and so forth. And I did it, and my mom was not so happy, and she made me put it all back. And then I did it the next day, and she said, it actually looks good. So it stayed. And then I just started doing it more and more and more and more. So pretty early on, I'd say.
So what kind of changes have you made to the pasta house?
Well, back in 2008, 2009, we did a complete renovation, added 1,200 square feet, remodeled the whole place. I think everybody's really, familiar with that. So yeah, that was a huge change. And then we actually were doing some a little bit of remodeling come January, but just cosmetic stuff. But yeah, we added a pizza oven back in 2008, 2009. The menus changed. It changes constantly. Trying to stay, on top of the culinary game, basically. So yeah, I mean, it's been so many changes over the years. Honestly, it's like, you have to keep up in this industry. If you don't keep up with the time and changes, then you're gonna fail. That's why there's so many failing restaurants out there. But we just try and stay on top of things and keep the restaurant thriving.
Absolutely. So tell us about, you run the day-to-day operations here at Base. So what is a typical day like for you, Cassie?
It's always very different, I would have to say. I mean, it's pretty consistent what we do, but there's always new people coming in and out. I think that's probably why I love my job so much, because there's never a dull moment. And you're always meeting and seeing different people, and obviously different things come up and situations you have to handle, but it's never dull. Typically, we have a fish auction and a scallop auction, so fish auction's at 6 and scallop auction's at 9. So that's kind of what I'm doing, running the auction, handling the vessels, and we're here unloading from after the auctions are over, from 11 a.m. all day, all night to the following morning.
John, tell us what the process is to have a feast of this size.
Well, feast of this size, we are known as the biggest little feast. And yes, the property is not that big, but the feast itself in character is huge. It's been around for 91 years. As far as the process, as far as setting up, there's a lot of planning involved. Takes at least a couple of months to get all the planning involved, you know what I mean? And then you got to do all your ordering of product. You got to make sure you have plenty of help to do everything that you need. But we've been fortunate enough to have a good crew of guys that show up all the time to help us. And without them, this would not be possible. I mean, we have electricians, we have plumbers, we have carpenters, we got guys that just work hard. And that's what we do. We all come together, and after a while, we've been known to be the Dirty Dozen. But over the years, now it's the Dirty 30. So we have come up and helped, and it's a good thing because there is a lot of work involved, and it's continuous. Until the day we open up, till the day we close, we don't stop working. And it's always been that way for years, as long as I can remember.
And these are all volunteers?
All volunteers. No one gets paid. No one gets paid. Some people have suggested that they would like to receive cash, but then we just show them the way out.
And arrange the die or dice, either or either is correct. Make a conscious choice, and then cover your other hand on it when you're done. So I can't see if I'm looking over there and you've got it good. All right, nice. Now, anytime I do this with a man of class, style, breeding, a highly intelligent individual, kind of like that Dos Equis guy, the most interesting man in the world. He always goes to the number 5. I don't know why. And that is exactly what you did. Yes?
That's exactly what I did.
Yeah, that is exactly what you did. Now, let's do it for real. I didn't have to work on that one. So let's look at it.